I sat in the lawyer's office watching my older brother Derek smirk as he listened to our father's will. My sister Patricia leaned back in her chair, arms crossed already looking satisfied. The lawyer read their names first. Derek inherited a $15 million investment portfolio. Patricia got the Manhattan townhouse worth $8 million. Then came my name, Russell. I inherited Roy's Gas and Go, a rundown gas station on the edge of town that barely made enough to pay its bills. Derek laughed out loud. Patricia rolled her eyes. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my face neutral. Dad never did anything without a reason, though. I had to believe that. Before I tell you how a rundown gas station changed everything, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next will show you why sometimes the smallest inheritance holds the biggest secret. My father, Frank, was not an easy man to know. He worked long hours. My entire childhood rarely home for dinner, never around for school events. But he was not cruel, just distant. Derek, being the oldest at 35, had always been the golden child, a successful attorney with a corner office downtown. Patricia, 32, followed close behind as a surgeon with a pristine reputation. Then there was me, 28 years old, teaching history at a public high school, making just enough to cover rent and groceries. I was never the favorite. That much was clear from the start. Growing up, I watched my siblings receive the attention, the praise, the financial support for their Ivy League educations. I got a state school scholarship and a pat on the back. Derek drove a BMW by 25. Patricia vacationed in Europe every summer. I drove a 10-year-old sedan and spent my breaks grading papers. But I never resented Dad for it. I figured he was doing what he thought was right. Maybe he believed I needed to learn independence. Maybe he just did not see me the same way he saw them. When Dad died of a heart attack last April, the funeral was small. Derek and Patricia put on a good show, dabbing their eyes with tissues, shaking hands with distant relatives. But I saw them whispering in the corner, already talking about assets, about what they would get. It made me sick. Still, I kept quiet. That was what I always did. The will reading happened 3 days after the funeral. The lawyer, a man named Morrison with silver hair and tired eyes, laid out the documents on his mahogany desk. He read through the formalities, then got to the distribution. Derek received the stock portfolio. Patricia got the house. When Morrison said my name, and then the words gas station, I heard Derek snort. He actually snorted. Patricia did not even try to hide her smile. "Enjoy your inheritance, little brother," Derek said as we left the office. "Maybe you can sell hot dogs there." Patricia chimed in. Dad always knew who deserved what. I did not respond. I just walked to my car and drove to the gas station for the first time as its owner. Roy's Gas and Go sat on a lonely stretch of highway about 20 minutes outside the city. The building was small, painted a faded yellow that had probably been bright once decades ago. 2 old fuel pumps stood like tired sentries out front. The sign buzzed and flickered even in daylight. I parked and got out, staring at the place. This was mine now. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. Inside, I met Jimmy. He was 65, with a weathered face and calloused hands, wearing grease-stained coveralls. He had worked for my father for 30 years. "Your dad loved this place," Jimmy said, shaking my hand firmly. "Spent more time here than anywhere." I asked him why. He just shrugged, said it reminded him of simpler times. I did not understand then, but I would. I decided not to sell. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was loyalty to a father who had never shown me much warmth. Either way, I started showing up every morning at 5 to help Jimmy open. I learned how to work the register, how to fix the pumps, when they jammed, how to mop the floors and restock the shelves. The work was hard. My back ached. My hands got dirty. But there was something honest about it. Something real. The first 3 months were rough. We barely broke even. Customers were few, mostly truckers, passing through, or locals who had been coming for years out of habit. I thought about Derek and Patricia in their comfortable lives, and I wondered if Dad had been punishing me after all. Maybe I really was the disappointment. Then, one Saturday in July, I was fixing a leaking pipe in the back office. The space was cramped, filled with old filing cabinets and boxes of receipts. As I pulled away a section of rotted drywall, I saw something behind it. A metal panel. I pried it loose and found a safe built into the wall, hidden behind a sheet of plywood. My heart started racing. I did not know the combination, but the lock was old. It took me 20 minutes with a crowbar to pop it open. Inside were folders, thick folders filled with documents, land surveys, geological reports, maps with sections of the property marked in red. I spread them out on the desk, my hands shaking. The reports were from 2019, just 4 years ago. They detailed a natural gas deposit beneath the gas station property. The estimates were staggering. Between $180 and $220 million worth of extractable natural gas. There was also a letter, handwritten. I recognized Dad's blocky script immediately. Russell, it read. You were the only one who ever cared about people, not money. This is yours. Protect it. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down hard in the creaky office chair and just stared at the wall. My father had known. He had known the whole time. This was not some accident. He had left me the only thing that really mattered, and he had trusted me to handle it. I did not tell anyone. Not Jimmy. Not my friends. No one. I contacted the geological survey company, quietly confirmed the findings were legitimate. They connected me with an energy company interested in purchasing extraction rights. The numbers they quoted made my head spin, but I told them I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to make sure I did this right. For the next few months, I kept running the gas station like nothing had changed. I smiled at customers, pumped gas, fixed leaks. Jimmy asked me once if I was okay. You seem distracted, he said. I told him I was fine, just tired. He did not push. 6 months after I inherited the gas station, Derek showed up. I was restocking the cooler with energy drinks when I saw his black Mercedes pull into the lot. He stepped out wearing a tailored suit, looking around with barely concealed disgust. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked outside. Derek, I said, what brings you here? He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Just wanted to see how my little brother is doing. Thought maybe we could grab dinner. Catch up. I was suspicious immediately. Derek had not called me once since the funeral, but I agreed. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to believe he actually cared. We went to a steakhouse downtown. Derek ordered an expensive bottle of wine, made small talk about his latest case, asked polite questions about the gas station. How is business? Do you get many customers? What are your plans for the place? I kept my answers vague. It is steady, I said. I am making it work. Toward the end of the meal, he leaned back and swirled his wine. You know, Russell, if you ever want to sell, I have some investor friends who might be interested. Could probably get you a decent price. I smiled tightly. I am keeping it, Derek. Dad wanted me to have it. He nodded slowly. Of course. Just thought I would offer. A week later, Patricia called. She said Derek was worried about me. She wanted to have a family meeting. Just the 3 of us, she said, to talk about things. I should have said no, but some part of me still wanted to believe they cared. So I drove to Patricia's house in Manhattan on a Sunday afternoon. They were waiting for me in her pristine living room, all white furniture and expensive art. Derek poured himself a scotch. Patricia sat with her legs crossed, looking at me like I was a patient she was about to diagnose. They did not waste time. Russell, Derek started, we have been talking. You are wasting your potential with that gas station. You should sell it and do something meaningful with your life. Patricia nodded. We are worried about you. You deserve better than scraping by. I felt my jaw tighten. Why do you suddenly care? I asked. Derek frowned. We have always cared. We are family. I laughed. It was not a nice sound. You did not care when Dad died. You did not care when I got nothing compared to what you both received. So why now? Patricia stood up, her face flushing. We are trying to help you, Russell. But you are too stubborn to see it. Derek leaned forward. I found a buyer, he said. $300,000. Take it. Walk away. Start fresh. That was when I knew. They knew something. Maybe not everything, but something. I stood up. I am not selling, I said. The gas station is mine, and it is staying mine. Derek's expression hardened. You are making a mistake. I left without another word. I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. So I did something I had never done before. I hired a private investigator, a retired cop named Grady, who owed a friend of mine a favor. I asked him to look into Derek and Patricia to see if they had been digging into the gas station property. What he found made my blood run cold. Derek had contacted the Geological Survey Company. He had asked questions about the land beneath Roy's Gas and Go. He had been careful using a shell corporation to hide his identity, but Grady traced it back. Derek knew about the natural gas. Worse, Patricia had been to see a lawyer. She was building a case to contest the will, to claim that Dad had been mentally incompetent when he wrote it that the distribution of assets was unfair and should be overturned. Grady gave me copies of emails between Derek and Patricia. They were planning everything. He does not deserve $200 million, Patricia had written. We will split it 50-50. Derek's response was simple. Agreed. Let me handle Russell. He will crack. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at those emails until my eyes burned. These were my siblings, the people I had grown up with, and they were plotting to take everything from me. Not because they needed it. They were already rich. They just could not stand the idea of me having something they did not. The pressure started almost immediately after that dinner. Derek sent his lawyer to the gas station with a letter threatening legal action. Patricia started spreading rumors to mutual acquaintances, saying I had manipulated Dad in his final days, that I was taking advantage of the family. A few people I had known for years started avoiding me. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Derek went further. He contacted some of my regular customers, told them the gas station was under investigation for safety violations. It was a lie, but it worked. Business dropped. Jimmy noticed. People are talking, he said one morning, saying things about you. I told him not to worry, but I was worried. I was terrified. Then Patricia tried a different approach. She had a shell company make an offer on the property. $500,000. When I refused, the offers kept coming. $700,000. $1 million. Each time I said no, each time I could feel them getting angrier. Finally, Derek came back. It was a cold October evening. I was closing up when his car pulled in, fast tires, screeching. He got out and slammed the door. His face was red. You think you can keep this? He shouted. I will take you to court and destroy you. I stayed calm. Dad gave it to me for a reason, Derek. He laughed bitterly. He was senile, Russell. Everyone knows that. I asked him to leave. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. You will regret this, little brother. Then he got back in his car and sped off. I stood there in the empty lot, the wind biting at my face, and I realized something. I was not going to let them win. Not this time. 2 weeks later, Derek and Patricia filed their lawsuit. They claimed Dad had been suffering from dementia when he wrote the will, that he had not been of sound mind, and that the distribution of his estate was grossly unfair. They hired one of the most expensive law firms in the state. I knew they were serious. I had to hire a lawyer, too. Her name was Sharon, a sharp woman in her 50s, who had handled estate disputes for 20 years. She was not cheap, but she believed in my case. Your father's will is airtight, she told me, but we have to prove he was competent. That means medical records, witness testimony, everything. I gave her everything I had. The preliminary hearing was brutal. Derek and Patricia's lawyer, a man with slicked back hair and a voice like silk, painted a picture of a confused old man who had made irrational decisions. He brought up times Dad had forgotten appointments, misplaced his keys, repeated stories. It sounded bad. I sat there gripping the edge of my chair, feeling like the walls were closing in. But Sharon fought back. She presented Dad's medical records. He had regular checkups. His doctor testified that Frank had shown no signs of cognitive decline. He was sharp, the doctor said. Remembered details from years ago. There was no dementia. Sharon also called Morrison, the lawyer who had drafted the will. He confirmed that Dad had been clear and deliberate about his wishes. The judge said he needed more time to review the evidence. The case would go to trial. I thought it was over then. I thought maybe they would back off. But Derek was relentless. He called me directly a few days later. "Meet me for coffee," he said. "We need to talk." Against my better judgment, I went. He was waiting at a corner cafe looking tired. He did not waste time. "Give us 40% of whatever you make from the land," he said. We dropped the lawsuit. Everyone walks away happy. I stared at him. "You really think I would agree to that?" He leaned forward. "You cannot win, Russell. We have the money, the lawyers, the connections. You are going to lose everything." I stood up. "I would rather lose everything than give you a single dollar." I walked out. That night, someone smashed the front window of the gas station, spray-painted obscenities on the side of the building. I called the police, but there were no cameras, no witnesses. They said they would investigate, but I knew nothing would come of it. I knew it was Derek, or someone he paid. I spent the next morning cleaning up broken glass, repainting the wall. Jimmy helped me without asking questions. I appreciated that. Patricia called a few days later. Her voice was tight-strained. "You are ruining this family, Russell. Mom would be ashamed of you. Our mother had died when I was 12. Patricia invoking her felt like a slap. I hung up. I did not have the energy to argue anymore, but I was not giving up. I started digging into Derek and Patricia's finances. I had access to some of Dad's old records, and I found something interesting. Derek had been filing his taxes using creative accounting that bordered on fraudulent. He had hidden income from his investment portfolio underreported capital gains. Patricia, meanwhile, had used some of Dad's money before he died to make an illegal insider trade. She had covered it well, but not perfectly. I gathered everything I could. Bank statements, email trails, transaction records. I handed it all to Grady, my investigator. "Can you make this stick?" I asked. He grinned. "Absolutely." I contacted the IRS about Derek. I sent a tip to the Securities and Exchange Commission about Patricia. I did not know if it would matter in the trial, but I wanted them to know I was not helpless. Then I did something else. I contacted the energy company and signed an exclusive contract for the natural gas extraction rights. The terms were ironclad. No one else could purchase or lease those rights for the next 20 years. Even if Derek and Patricia somehow got the land, they would not be able to touch the gas. I paid a lawyer to make sure every detail was perfect. It cost me a chunk of my savings, but it was worth it. The trial began in early December. The courtroom was cold and sterile. Derek and Patricia sat on one side with their legal team looking confident. I sat with Sharon feeling like I was about to face a firing squad. The judge was an older woman named Harper, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked like she had seen every trick in the book. Derek and Patricia's lawyer went first. He was smooth, confident. He presented his case methodically. Frank was not mentally competent. The will was invalid. The distribution was unfair. He brought up every piece of circumstantial evidence he could find. Dad forgetting a dentist appointment. Dad repeating a story about the war. It was all flimsy, but he made it sound damning. Then it was Sharon's turn. She started with the medical records. Clear, undeniable proof that Dad had been in good health, mentally sharp, right up until his death. She called Dr. Brennan, Dad's physician. "He has been my patient for 15 years, Dr. Brennan said. "I saw him 2 months before he passed. He was lucid, coherent, had perfect recall. There was no sign of dementia or cognitive impairment whatsoever." Sharon then called Morrison to the stand. He described the day Dad came to write his will. He was very specific about what he wanted Morrison testified. He explained his reasons. He said Derek and Patricia cared only about money, but Russell cared about people. He wanted to leave Russell something meaningful. The courtroom was silent. I could feel Derek and Patricia glaring at me from across the room. Then Sharon did something I did not expect. She pulled out Dad's letter, the one I had found in the safe. "Your Honor," she said, "I would like to enter this into evidence. It is a letter from Frank to his son Russell, explaining his decision." The judge allowed it. Sharon read it aloud. "Russell, you were the only one who ever cared about people, not money. This is yours. Protect it." Her voice echoed in the quiet room. I saw Patricia look down at her hands. Derek's jaw was clenched so tight, I thought it might break. But Sharon was not done. She presented evidence that Derek and Patricia had known about the natural gas deposit. She showed the emails, the shell company Derek had used to contact the survey company, the attempts to buy the land through front organizations. She laid it all out. "They knew what this land was worth," Sharon said, "and they tried to steal it." The judge's expression shifted. She looked at Derek and Patricia with something like disgust. Their lawyer tried to recover to argue that it did not matter that the will was still invalid. But it was too late. The damage was done. The judge called a recess. We waited for 2 hours. When she came back, her decision was clear. "I have reviewed all the evidence," Judge Harper said. "Frank's will is valid. He was of sound mind when he wrote it. His wishes were clear and deliberate. This case is dismissed." She looked directly at Derek and Patricia. "Furthermore, I am ordering the plaintiffs to pay all legal fees incurred by the defendant. That is $200,000. Derek looked like he had been punched. Patricia's face went white. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I could breathe for the first time in months. Sharon hugged me. "You did it," she said. I could not speak. I just nodded. But the consequences for Derek and Patricia did not end there. The IRS launched an investigation into Derek's taxes. They found the discrepancies I had uncovered. He was hit with fines and penalties totaling over $3 million. He had to liquidate part of his investment portfolio to pay it. Patricia was investigated by the SEC for her illegal trade. She lost her medical license for 2 years. Her reputation was destroyed. They both tried calling me after that. I did not answer. After the trial, I met with the energy company and finalized the contract. They paid me $185 million up front for a 25-year lease on the extraction rights. On top of that, I would receive royalties every year estimated at $2 to $3 million annually. It was more money than I had ever imagined having in my entire life. But I did not quit the gas station. I kept it. I used part of the money to renovate it completely. I tore down the old pumps and installed modern eco-friendly ones. I repainted the building, updated the interior, added a small cafe section. I even opened 2 more locations in nearby towns, creating jobs for over 30 people. The community responded. Business boomed. And Jimmy. I gave him $500,000 as a thank you for his loyalty. He cried when I handed him the check. "Your dad would be so proud of you," he said, his voice breaking. "I hope so," I replied. "I really hope so." The months after the trial were strange. I had won, but I did not feel victorious. I felt empty. I spent a lot of nights lying awake thinking about Derek and Patricia, about how easily they had turned on me, about how little family had meant to them when money was involved. It hurt. It still hurts. But slowly I started to heal. I reconnected with old friends. My buddy Kyle, who I had known since high school, came by the gas station one day. He had heard about everything through the grapevine. "You did the right thing," he told me over beers. "Your dad knew what he was doing." I started to believe that. I started to let go of the anger, the bitterness. It was not easy, but I worked at it. I also met someone. Her name was Angela. She taught English at the same school where I used to work. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was kind, funny, and did not care about the money. She did not even know about it for the first 2 months we dated. When I finally told her, she just shrugged. "That is great, Russell, but it does not change who you are." I think I fell in love with her right then. About a year after the trial, Derek called. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. His voice was hoarse, tired. "Russell," he said, "I am sorry. I was wrong. I did not say anything. I just listened." Patricia sent me a letter around the same time. It was 2 pages of apologies, of regrets, of excuses. I read it once and put it in a drawer. Eventually, I called Derek back. "I appreciate the apology," I said, "but what you did cannot be undone. You chose money over family." There was a long silence. "I know," he said finally. "I lost everything that mattered. Maybe one day we can talk," I told him, "but not now." I hung up and felt lighter. I was not holding on to hatred anymore. I was just letting go. Sitting in my renovated office at the gas station one evening, looking out at the bright new sign that read Russell's Gas and Go Honoring Frank's Legacy, I thought about everything that had happened. I thought about Dad, about how he had known exactly what he was doing. He had not given me the easiest path. He had given me the test, and I had passed. Derek and Patricia had only ever seen the dollar signs. They had only ever cared about what they could take. But I had learned something they never would. That value is not just about money. It is about integrity. It is about standing up for what is right, even when it is hard. It is about building something real, something lasting. The gas station was not just an inheritance. It was a lesson about character, about perseverance, about what really matters in life. And I had learned it. I did not need to forgive Derek and Patricia to move forward. I did not need their approval or their apology to be happy. I had built my own life surrounded by people who cared about me for who I was, not what I had. I stood up and walked outside. Angela was waiting by her car, smiling. Jimmy was locking up the front, whistling an old tune. A few of my employees were laughing together by the cafe. This was my family now. Not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen, the one I had built. And it was enough. It was more than enough. Sometimes the greatest inheritance is not what is handed to you. It is what you choose to do with it. And sometimes the family you need is not the one you were born into. It is the one you build yourself. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it, and I would not trade that for anything. So, let me ask you, have you ever had someone in your life try to take something from you just because they thought they deserved it more? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if this story meant something to you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening. I hope you find your own peace, whatever that looks like. Take care of yourselves out there.